Your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. Be in the loop, cause Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix on women's MMA with Got You Covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel De Leon, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. Whether it be you, your friends, your family, even if you live in the States or internationally, you are doing fine for yourself. You're healthy as you're persevering through this time of uncertainty. This is being reported in by MMAJunkie.com that UFC champion Amanda Nunes says, "Actually, I'm not fighting." Whereas the majority of UFC fighters seem willing and ready to compete during the global coronavirus pandemic, Amanda Nunes apparently isn't one of them. Nunes, the UFC Women's Featherweight and Bantamweight champion, is slated to defend her 145-pound belt against Felicia Spencer on May 9 at a location that is yet to be determined, but we can make an estimated guess. It's gonna be in Florida. So, not so fast. Nunes says, "Actually, I'm not fighting May 9. Nunes told CBS Sports on Monday, "I'm going to fight, but I don't know yet. I don't think this is the right time for me right now to fight. Let this coronavirus pass a little bit so I can at least have a full camp. We can maybe see around June, but let's see what is going to happen. But I'm not fighting May 9. As of this writing, the UFC has yet to respond to MMA Junkie's reports, but we can say here that UFC involving the women's champion isn't going to happen, sadly. The UFC was the final major sports organization to halt operations within the cancellation of UFC 249, and all future events indefinitely have been cancelled earlier this month. And also, all events have been cancelled in the month of May, with the exception of the May 9 event. So, we don't know what's happening after the May 9 event. All we know that so far, the May 9 event is the only for sure event that we know is going to happen for the UFC. All the other events are going to be rebooked, and we don't know what to expect. We don't know when Fight Island is going to be done. So while everyone is prepping up for the UFC event coming up on May 9th, we got some representatives of American Top Team preparing to train, and we got fighter like Jessica Andrade, who converted her home to a gym, and she's Jessica Andrade has gone to say. And even a lot of fighters from like Ferguson and Khabib have gone to say how training has proven to be a lot more difficult because of this coronavirus issue. Because they have to convert their gym into a home gym. They got to convert their home to a gym. They have to have a coach or have a mentor. They got to have contact with via phone or via Skype or via FaceTime. It's not one-on-one really. So while things are going on in the fight world, people are prepping up and training here, how Nunes is focused on still fighting on Felicia Spencer and hopes to make it happen in June, assuming the UFC schedule is running. "I like this matchup a lot," Nunes said. "I like to fight girls like her, tough, want to fight all the time. She's not a running fighter. She's really going to bring that, and I love it. That brings out the best in me. Just not the moment under, certain circumstances here." So, I understand completely of Amanda Nunes, I understand her issue really with this. So, and also, here's another thing also. If you're a UFC champion, here's the thing that you have to recognize when it comes to, fighters who've reached a certain points or or achieved certain accolades within the UFC, and that you have the leeway to start picking and choosing of where and when you want your fights to happen. I would definitely like a lot more. So even for as strict as Dana White is, and for as like no nonsense, like no one's gonna push me around. I'm Dana White. Like UFC champions, I feel it's kind of off or very disrespectful, or it makes the organization looks bad when UFC fighters are like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna do it. Yes, I haven't fought in several months, and yes, I know I'm contractually obligated to participate in 2020, but I do not want to fight this time. Now here's the thing. Amanda Nunes, she's not going through any injury. She's not. Other than the coronavirus issue, which is a pertaining issue that goes over everyone. It handles it's a problem for everybody, not just Nunes. So Nunes' specific issue isn't really an issue here. Amanda Nunes, from what I'm reading in between the lines of Amanda Nunes declining to fight against Felicia Spencer, is because, Felicia Spencer, she's a really tough opponent. Other than Germaine de Randamie, I don't think there's anybody who can take Amanda Nunes, who could potentially defeat Amanda Nunes in an MMA fight. It has to be Felicia Spencer and Germaine de Randamie. Those are the only two I can think of right now who have the highest chances of beating Nunes. Spencer's 8-1, and she's a dog, man. She's full force, gonna push straight forward, and her only loss in the UFC was against Chris Cyborg. Was against Chris, and then after that, she then defeated, I think, Tatiana Suarez right afterwards via first round KO. So it's not like, she's already fought against the best already. She fought against Chris Cyborg, who a lot of people were betting on to go defeat Amanda Nunes in their champion versus champion bouts. And so Felicia Spencer, it's not like she's a random underdog. I think a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about how Felicia Spencer, I kind of discredited Felicia Spencer a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about, what, she's not the favorite to win this, and I can easily see Amanda Nunes defeat Felicia Spencer via, late in the second round or early in the third round. I'm beginning to kind of change that. I believe that if these two were to fight, Amanda Nunes, without a doubt, will defeat Felicia Spencer in the first two rounds. That's how I predict it. And then I think Spencer will win it out in the fourth and fifth round, and third round is a complete toss-up. I think coming up, because Amanda Nunes has this weird tendency of, unloading everything as early as she can. And here's the thing, Felicia Spencer, she's a tough hombre. She can take it. I won't be surprised. The only thing that Amanda Nunes has over Felicia Spencer would be the cardio aspect, but only by a slight bit, really, if you think about it. Because Amanda Nunes, when she gets to the championship rounds, begins to slow down, and her total cumulative volume striking it peters down. It doesn't. She goes from a high volume striker, pulling out everything she can, trying to knock you out in the first two rounds, into you know what? I'm gonna fight very strategically here. I am fine clinching you and pressing you up the cage in order for me to have a breather here. I'm fine trying to go for takedowns. I'm fine fighting this very slow, very safe, passive style coming into the championship rounds. That was Amanda Nunes' situation when she fought against Germaine de Randamie. Although Germaine de Randamie had Nunes on the ropes here until the championship rounds, to which Nunes slowed down the pace. And so Amanda Nunes, when I see her, when she's like, I don't want to go fight against Felicia Spencer, I'm reading in between lines saying that, Amanda Nunes probably, after her encounter with Germaine de Randamie, she has to improve her training camp. I think the training and strategy matters so much for the champions, especially when you're fighting against people who aren't that easy to knock out. Yeah, climbing up the ranks here, it's really easy to knock out some. It's like Jeremy Stephens. Jeremy Stephens can dominate anybody, from 10 to 14th rank in the lightweight division, but he just struggles immensely when he gets towards the upper echelon of his division, which he's fighting. He just can't knock out people. He's this knockout guy who can't knock out people once he gets to a certain point in the division. And that's the same thing for Amanda Nunes. She knocked out Chris Cyborg, but that version of Chris Cyborg that we saw was very different from the Chris Cyborg that we've been used to, that we've grown to enjoy. That was technical dynamic striker Chris Cyborg, who has to beat you out through smart precision striking and being a smart counterfighter through a 5-round fight. That was the Chris Cyborg that we ended up getting when she fought against Amanda Nunes. And so the fact that Felicia Spencer went through 5 rounds against Cyborg, and that's a great accolade on its own, really. So Felicia Spencer, more than anyone else other than Germaine de Randamie, deserves to fight against Amanda Nunes, and I understand completely Amanda Nunes' perspective, in that she wants a full training camp. She wants to be fully prepared, and she wants to be fully ready to fight against somebody who might be the biggest challenge of her career so far. And also, she's talking about when she expects this fight to happen. She says around June. I don't think it's going to be June. So, if you guys don't know, I currently live in California. As of the time of this recording, all the states are announcing that by June, business is going to reopen. But only some businesses are going to reopen though. But this isn't the first time I've heard this or I read about this. States have always been pushing back a month, then another month, then another month on reopening businesses. I think now it's getting more and more infuriating now as businesses are being like, you know what? People need jobs. There are more people going through unemployment now more than ever. We need the economy to start booming again because the economy right now is in a rut. So people are speculating, you know what? Things might open up middle of June. And that's just people like starting to open up again. Things aren't going to be regular for a while. So Khabib Nurmagomedov and his training camp are predicting September is when everything will go back to normal. So we're unsure when exactly Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer is going to happen. But when it does happen, it's going to be a great fight. I know it. So you listen to the GSMC Women's MMA podcast, coming back right after the short break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. So coming in from one champion to another, we have Chris Cyborg urging Dana White to make a cross-promotion fight with Amanda Nunes. This is quoted here from BloodyElbow.com. That if Dana is interested in making the biggest fights for the fans that the most people want to see for the most money, I don't see any reason why we don't have a cross-promotion fight. Chris Cyborg challenging Amanda Nunes. Former UFC Women's Featherweight Champion turned Bellator Champion is Chris Cyborg, who called out Dana White to make a cross-promotion fight with Amanda Nunes, who previously KO'd Cyborg at UFC 232 to win the 145-pound title. Cyborg went on to TKO Julia Budd to capture the Bellator Featherweight title in her promotional debut and is still considered one of the best female fighters on the planet. Speaking to Low Kick MMA in a recent interview, Chris Cyborg, real name Christian Justino, claims Bellator CEO Scott Coker is interested in a UFC Bellator cross-promotion event and urged White to give the fans what they want to see. Scott Coker has already sent Bellator fighters to face rising athletes in Japan. We are open to the matchup, Justino said. I just beat Julia Budd, who was undefeated 8 years at 145 pounds. Bellator has a world champion boxer in Arlene Bianco, and the last girl to beat Nunes in Kat Zingano at 145 pounds. Leah McCourt, Leslie Smith, Olga Rubin are all fights we can make, and there are many girls in the Bellator who are currently in the world rankings. Nunes is getting ready to defend her belt against a girl who I beat on pretty decisively over 3 rounds. After that fight, she has a rematch with Valentina Shevchenko and no other real options for quality opponents. Who will she fight after that? If Dana is interested in making the biggest fights for the fans that the most people want to see for the most money, I don't see any reason why we can't have a cross-promotion fight. Fans get those in boxing all the time. White has never been open to cross-promotional events in the past and isn't exactly the best of terms with Chris Cyborg, so don't expect to see the UFC president announce the event coming up. Okay, so do I think it's gonna happen? No. We've heard rumors about it all the time of UFC of someone pushing for a cross-promotion fight happening in the UFC. It's just not gonna happen. Really isn't. And also, here's the thing. There's already a lot of fighters currently right now who are upset of how fighters are somehow leapfrogging them within the division. Even though the prediction is for who to win the fight, Amanda Nunes or Tatiana Suarez, we all know Amanda Nunes is very likely to go defeat against Tatiana Suarez. But it feels right for Tatiana Suarez to fight against Amanda Nunes, as opposed to another fighter in another division in another organization to all of a sudden step in and have a title fight against Amanda Nunes. This has been going on. This has been going on for a while already. Then, so Bellator has a working relationship with Ryzen, and that makes sense. It was astounding to know that Dana White was able to come up with a trade with one championship, which is just like mind blowing to me. That UFC had like trade negotiations. You could do that. You could just trade fighters. I didn't think that was possible, really. But with the growing popularity of Invicta, with ONE, with Bellator, I would love to live in a world where all these fighters can go match up against each other. Like, my perfect dream scenario would be if there's just one definitive rankings that pertains to all fighters. That's what I'll like. I'll like it if the top 10 rankings for a division has the top 10 fighters from Invicta to UFC to Bellator to ONE. I would enjoy that a lot more, really. It makes covering the sport a lot more easier, but that's not going to happen. Yeah, the UFC has a long history of refusing to do business, other than the situation where they worked with ONE and they worked with Pride back in the 90s. The track record for UFC doing events or having cross-promotion fights isn't really the most popular option within the UFC brass, and I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's like demoralizing to the fighters who are trying to work their way up within the rankings of the UFC. I don't really think that's right, also. And really, like, is it really a major money fight though for Chris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes? Is it really though? Let's just be honest here, because we've seen the fights. We've seen Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg, and Chris Cyborg is downplaying Felicia Spencer. Felicia Spencer, the fact that so Cyborg went from this person who you can barely survive coming out of the first round to this fighter who you can actually go toe-to-toe with for 3 rounds. The fact that she was able to go toe-to-toe, the fact that Felicia Spencer was able to go toe-to-toe against Chris Cyborg and walked away from it being a better fighter, I give a lot of credit for Felicia Spencer in that scenario. So I'm discrediting Chris Cyborg, discrediting Felicia Spencer. I think Felicia Spencer has enough tools to go make the fight with her against Amanda Nunes kind of competitive. Now, would I like to see Chris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes again? Heck yeah, I definitely would. So when it was Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg for the first time, me and my friends, my family were all watching that, and we were like freaking out over the fight. We knew it was going to be a war between Nunes and Cyborg. Those two were going all the way with it. I think in a rematch, Nunes is still the favorite against Cyborg. I really do think so. I would even put down Shevchenko as being the favorite to go defeat Chris Cyborg. I'd even put down Willie Zhang to be the favorite to go defeat Chris Cyborg. Chris Cyborg, for as great as Chris Cyborg is, I think right now, in 2020, Chris Cyborg, is not. I'd rather see other fighters right now fight against Amanda Nunes or fight against Valentina Shevchenko or fight against any of the women's fighters in the strawweight division. I would rather watch a lot of these other fighters compete against each other than I would see a 2020 version of Chris Cyborg. Yes, her performance against Bud was very impressive. I'm not discounting that. And competitors like Kat Zingano. Kat is a really good fighter. Kat Zingano, when she fought against Amanda Nunes that one time, I think we didn't see the best version of Nunes. I don't really think so. I think if Zingano were to fight against Nunes right now, the current iteration of 2020 Kat Zingano versus 2020 Amanda Nunes, I would put my money on Amanda Nunes defeating against Kat Zingano. It's similar to so even though Jeremy Horn defeated Chuck Liddell, when those two fought for the second time, it was obvious Chuck Liddell improved at such a degree that the Liddell smoked Jeremy Horn. And that's the same scenario with Kent Zingano versus Amanda Nunes. Yes, Zingano defeated Nunes, but Nunes, since that loss, has gone through an unbeaten streak, and it is so impressive that I just don't see anyone taking down Amanda Nunes anytime soon. And speaking of Valentina, so she's really jazzed up for Fight Island. So in recent interviews, she's talking about, oh man, Fight Island. So she's placing it in this very weird box, different from a lot of other people. So when Dana White first announced Fight Island, everyone was making Fire Festival comparisons or comparisons to blood sports. I think when I heard Fight Island, I thought, okay, this is like Mortal Kombat, okay? You got all these fighters here from different backgrounds, different styles, different worlds, going to a mystical, magical boat, going to this island that nobody knows where this island is on the map. So far, nobody knows where this island is. We just know that's an island. And so, everyone's thinking oh man, this island, what the heck is it? It's this mysterious island. Is it like Skull Island? For all we know, the fighters go there and they gotta fight a bunch of inhabitants with spears. Is it Fire Festival, where it's not even really an island? It's like this empty box zone next to a casino. What is happening here with Fight Island? But Valentina, though, she's like pretty optimistic about it. She's like, oh man, Fight Island is going to be great. Like, I wouldn't mind living in Fight Island. And how I think about it is like, Valentina, how can you say you would enjoy living in Fight Island when you don't even know where Fight Island even is? We don't even know what Fight Island even looks like. For all we know, it could just be like, just like, there could be like one tree in the middle of this island that no, and by the way, so Dana White's, he's running this island, by the way. He's running this island and he's building a facility there. And Valentina's like, yeah man, I don't mind staying there for a while. It could be like Hawaii. It's so intriguing that Valentina's perspective on this island that is shrouded in mystery. Her comparison is like, oh man, it could be like Hawaii. Let's have some fun! And she talked about how after her fight against Joanne Calderwood, because she's right now aiming for her fights to defend her belt against Joanne Calderwood, she had to pull out because she's filming a movie, and also she's injured, and also coronavirus. So, and also she's really bidding for fight at Fight Island. So there's multiple issues as to why Valentina Shevchenko is not going to be competing in this upcoming UFC event. I think she was slated to compete in the month of May, but because, you know, a lot of things are going on, it might be rebooked on June or a September show. And so after the short break here, it is reported that Halle Berry had her bones broken by Valentina Shevchenko. Let's get into that. Let's figure out what's going on here, coming up after the short break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. So we come from one champion to another. We went from Amanda Nunes to Chris Cyborg to Valentina Shevchenko. 3 world-class athletes. Well, Valentina, she's making the next step in her career as not just a fighter, but also in Hollywood. This is coming in from MMAfighting.com here, with the headline being, Halle Berry says, and I quote, really broke some bones thanks to Valentina Shevchenko during Bruised filming. So the movie here is called Bruised. When Halle Berry signed up to star and direct in a movie titled Bruised, which is set in the world of mixed martial arts, she knew she wasn't going to walk away from filming unscathed. The Academy Award-winning actress actually had to pause production briefly last year after she suffered a minor injury during filming, where her character was engaging in a fight sequence with Berry doing her own stunts. In the film, Halle Berry plays Jackie Justice. Alright, that's like, what's the movie called again? Southland Tales? Dwayne The Rock Johnson played a character named, my name is Jericho Kane, and I'm an undercover cop who's also an actor. And for Halle Berry, she's Jackie Justice. Oh, I get it. So the MMA crowd here can like, so JJ's got a fight here against Valentina. Who's gonna win this fight over here? JJ with the duck under, JJ for the takedown. And I can imagine the crowd being like, Justice, Justice, Justice. We love you, Justice. You're a huge inspiration to my life, Halle Berry. It's so, you know, there's some actresses and actors nowadays, to be honest with you, who are, they have such a presence outside their own films that's hard to credit them when they actually do appear in a film. Like, that's how it is. Like, it's like, no one knows, like, what is Dwayne The Rock Johnson's name in any of the Fast movies? Nobody knows. We're like, oh man, so The Rock and Vin Diesel jump out of a car and then they punch each other. Like, no one's gonna say, you know, what their character names are. Nobody's gonna, that's like when Halle Berry, like, hey, my name is, you know, Jackie Justice. Like, nobody's gonna believe that. It's ridiculous. But Jackie Justice, played by Halle Berry, is a downtrodden MMA fighter who is battling her own demons while trying to reconcile with her 6-year-old son. Her main rival in the film is played by Valentina Shevchenko, And according to Barry, she had to really go toe-to-toe with the UFC flyweight champion during several fight scenes. You have to go toe-to-toe. She'll go, I broke some stuff on this one, Halle Berry revealed when speaking to The Tonight Show on Tuesday. It's okay. I always get hurt, but I realize that when you go hard, you're bound to get hurt. When you do your own stunts, you're bound to get hurt. So, just now, in her 3 decades as an actress, she's like, oh wow, I just now realized that if you just do your own stunts, you'll get hurt. Wow. Like, what do you expect? If someone, do you think doing a barrel, okay, so, I really liked her performance when she was like this martial arts expert fighting along Keanu Reeves, in the John Wick 3. So, I have a lot of confidence in Halle Berry pulling off these really cool looking fight scenes, because Halle Berry, throughout the entire, so Halle Berry had maybe 2 moves she kept doing over and over again, during the John Wick 3 film. And then it was her doing a barrel roll, her doing like a spinning hurricanrana to an arm triangle choke. She kept doing that thing over and over again. It was ridiculous. Halle Berry pulled out more triangle chokes than she did punching a person. Which is like so, now she nailed it though. It looked really cool. That's all I gotta say. Like, Halle Berry, she made that hurricanrana triangle choke in her barrel rolls look solid, look crisp. It was great to see her do it. Look really clean. But she's like, you know what, actually, I just realized it actually hurts when you do a barrel. It actually hurts it actually hurts when you're doing a hurricanrana and you gotta be kind of slammed to the floor as you go and pull off an arm triangle. What do you expect? You've been doing this for like 30 years. So, Halle Berry goes on to say in this interview with The Tonight Show, where she says, in this movie, I was fighting the real UFC flyweight champion, Valentina Shevchenko, and you know what? She had to throw some real kicks, and I had to really take them, and that really broke some bones. She's a beast, and I couldn't have asked for a better teacher, a better scene mate, a better fight partner. Berry praised Shevchenko as a tremendous scene partner, but she says the UFC champion also served as a real teacher on set to help the film gain legitimacy during those fight sequences. She just brought so much reality for me. At times, I felt like I was really fighting, Berry said. Like, a referee that was in the movie is a real referee. And he says a couple times, man, I thought I was watching a real fight, because she brought so much power and authenticity to our fight scenes. For her part, Shevchenko shared a similar experience after working with Berry on Bruised. This is Valentina Shevchenko's experience. Of course, when I get this opportunity from Halle to be part of her movie, of course I thought it's a great idea, Shevchenko told MMA Fighting. I read the script and it was a very inspirational story about a mixed martial arts female who was struggling not only about the sport, but about also making herself better, her life better, and I thought this is a great opportunity. It was an amazing experience. Halle, she's really a wonderful person. It's very easy to work with her. Like, example, she wanted something from me and she knew the exact words to make me work as necessary for the movie for my character. I can't wait for the movie to be released. I think it should be something very great. Berry became so close with the reigning 125-pound champion that she attended Shevchenko's last UFC fight at UFC 247, to which she knocked out Caitlin Chookagian. And then, Halle Berry, I think it's Halle Berry. So Halle Berry, shares an image of her and Valentina hugging it out in the UFC events. And it's really adorable, to be honest with you. So Valentina Shevchenko, in a separate interview from this one, goes on to say that, you know what, Halle Berry, she has a chance to actually compete with the top dogs of the women's mixed martial arts divisions. And I'm like, no, she isn't. Okay. I'm excited for this film. Because, Halle Berry has to be like one of the most self-aware people there is. And, so it was not until, I saw her Razzie award-winning, a speech she had after the Catwoman film. So she filmed this movie, Catwoman. It was really bad. It was considered the worst film of the year. And that's not people just being haters. So, if someone makes a bad movie, there's a chance that, whoever's acting in it, or the director or the writer, they'll be defensive. It happens a lot nowadays, with, YouTubers. Or if you make content out there on YouTube, or if you make something out there and it's presented to a large audience, they typically say, haters gonna hate, you know what, you don't understand, I worked really hard for this, man, you're just giving a lot of negative energy. But for Halle Berry, though, whenever she makes a bad movie or a great movie, she's aware of it, she gets the jokes. Halle Berry recognizes that she comes across as a over-the-top kind of cartoony character whenever she has to act serious, for the most part. Like, she's naturally, like, a very quirky, klutzy person. If you ever heard her in interviews, she's, like, super nice. She was like, yeah, man, like, I'm pretty sure, like, Valentina and Halle Berry have a wonderful relationship. Like, they're doing perfectly fine. Like, you know, they're taking, like, kitty pictures. They're inviting her to dinner all the time. They're having fun, eating out together, watching TV, you know, working out in the gym. They're having the best time they can hanging out with each other. I'm pretty sure they do. But Halle Berry, when she has to act very serious, as in the past 20 years, when Halle Berry has to act very serious for a scene in film, a lot of people kind of like me are like, you know, I don't believe it. I really don't believe it. So even though Halle Berry, I think the movie is going to be really fun. I really do think so. I know it sounds like I'm kind of dogging on the film. It's just because it's Halle Berry and she's like hard to take serious for the most part, because she kind of comes across as like a real life cartoon character for the most part. And so if gentlemen, maybe the premise just throws me off. Maybe that's my problem, because it sounds like a very generic like sports movie, but that's how sports movies are. And that, like, you know, oh man, she's like this veteran fighter in the downturn of her career, and she's also divorced, and she's single, and she has a 6-year-old son who kind of doesn't like her. I'm getting real Southpaw vibes. If you guys haven't seen the film, there's a movie called Southpaw. It has Mark Wahlberg in it as the boxer, and as Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale. So both of them are boxers, and the story is like so formulaic, so over the top, so over dramatic, that even though like actual MMA fighters, their lives are pretty dramatic and insane also. Like John Jones' life is pretty insane. But can we just have a story about a fighter, whether it be a boxer or an MMA fighter, who's somewhat kind of normal here? Putting this out there, man, she's gonna have a Rocky montage, and it's gonna be great. So listen to the GSMC Women's MMA podcast, coming back right after the short break here with some more MMA news.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back. This is coming in from BloodyElbow.com with a headline, Joanna Jacek says, "My soul was bleeding after Weili Zhang barn burner at UFC 248. Joanna Jacek talks candidly about the physical and emotional pain she went through after a loss to Weili Zhang at UFC 248. Joanna Jacek was looking to reclaim the UFC strawweight title against Weili Zhang at UFC 248 last month. While the two put on a memorable performance that rightfully earned Fight of the Night honors, the former 115-pound champion was left visibly shattered until the week after the bouts. But for Joanna Jacek, the pain went beyond just the physical. In a recent interview with the South China Morning Post, she recounted some of her emotional moments at the hospital. They did a small medical procedure on my ear, I had a CAT scan, I had an ultrasound, I had an x-ray, and honestly, after a fight like this, I felt like every touch from the doctors and nurses, everything was so painful. I didn't want anybody to touch my body, and I felt like my heart was bleeding, like my soul was bleeding. Joanna is fully aware about the physicality of her chosen profession, and after achieving UFC gold with many of her contemporaries aside, the 32-year-old Polish fighter is already looking at her life outside of competition. But for now, she's here to stay. That's a question I ask myself every day, she said about retirement. I'm not getting any younger, I'm only getting older. I took lots of damage in my last fight, and I'm really grateful that nothing serious happened to me. It was only bruises. Every next fight is going to be a big risk, and I want to be a mother in the future. If I put on a hell of a performance, a hell of a war, why retire, she added. If I was not training hard, if I was getting knocked out, if I was losing fights like blank, then I could retire, but I'm a warrior. As for her next move, Joanna wants a rematch against Weili Zhang, a matchup she feels is a big money fight that the UFC needs. And I agree with Joanna. Without a doubt, I was talking to other people about this, but Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang easily, without a doubt, is the best fight of the year. The only thing that can match up with it in terms of fight of the year status would be the main nine event, the main nine fight between Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. And besides, Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson, they have a long ways to go. They really do. They have to go out there pulling everything out, pulling nothing but throwing haymakers and trying to destroy each other in the octagon to have just even a little ounce of Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, because that fight was insane. I said this before, but I've had people who do not even follow the world of mixed martial arts go up and tell me, hey, did you see that Joanna versus Weili Zhang UFC fight? That was amazing. Like, I got people who are basketball fans, I got people who are pro wrestling fans, I got people who are baseball fans. None of those people, they follow all those sports. Like, I myself don't follow baseball. I don't get it. I can't find the appeal in baseball, but the fact that Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk was able to appeal to a large audience out there that don't even follow mixed martial arts, that really is the true definition of a real money-making match here. I think there are people within the UFC brass and some like mega hyper fans of mixed martial arts would say, hey man, Dominic Cruz versus Henry Cejudo, that's a money match. No, it really isn't. I don't really think that's much of a money match. Even Dana White was promoting, hey, Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, that without a doubt will be the biggest fight, or will be the best fight of the entire night. And it really was. There's a lot of hype going in for Yoel Romero versus Israel Adesanya, but me and a lot of fight fans knew that, oh man, dude, this is gonna be real, like Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang. That fight could be a toss-up. A lot of people were picking on Weili Zhang to go win that fight, and that fight was incredibly close. I judged that fight for Joanna Jędrzejczyk defeating Weili Zhang, because I'm just going off purely by the numbers here. I'm the weird psychopath that would pick Dominic Cruz defeating against Cody Garbrandt, because statistically, Dominic Cruz did better in his fight against Cody Garbrandt, even though it was obvious that Cody Garbrandt was destroying and pummeling Dominic Cruz. And so yeah, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, her face was pummeled. Her face got wrecked and destroyed by Weili Zhang, but statistically, she fought better than Weili. And if we were to go get another batch of judges out there who look at fights differently, because everyone scores fights very differently, whether it be Joe Rogan or Big John McCarthy or like me and my friends or you yourself, we all score fights very differently. We all like overrate we all overrate or underrate some aspects of the fight game. I think takedowns are pretty overrated myself, because I think you shouldn't be awarded for a takedown if the person who was if the person was in the ground for like 15 seconds and was able to get out of it. You should be rewarded for your defense. That's how I perceive like wrestling. Really, I think a lot of wrestling is kind of overrated. I feel like in a fight, you should go out there, you should try to defeat your opponent, you should beat them down, not aim for time or aim for judges. Because in a real fight, like you put your arms up there and then like you punch the other person and then you just wrestle them for like 20 minutes and then you stand up after 20 minutes being like, yeah, I statistically defeated you, because the judges, it's so weird and so difficult how to judge fights. And you can make the argument that Joanna should have been the world champion. She should have. But right now, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's thinking about retirement. The strawweight division is deep. That's all I gotta say. The strawweight division is incredibly deep. I say it's the most deepest division of all of mixed martial arts, the women's strawweight division. And so if Joanna Jędrzejczyk, whoever she fights within the top 5, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a tough matchup. Whether it be Rose Namajunas or Jessica Andrade, or even if she were to like go up and fight maybe Amanda Nunes or Jermaine Ranming, like there's a lot of possibilities. Like it's not like there's nothing happening in the women's strawweight divisions right now. There's a lot happening there. And honestly, the woman who comes out on top of this within the next 3 years of the women's strawweight division might make the case for being the best ever. In terms of, it might be the case of being the best ever women's champion ever. They really can. Joanna Jędrzejczyk was at one point considered the best women's fighter in the world. You could have arguably made the case. It's either her or Amanda Nunes right now. And so I think right now, because Joanna Jędrzejczyk doesn't have the belt and Amanda still has both of her belts happening, people are still leaning it towards Amanda Nunes, but one could argue Joanna is maybe the second greatest UFC women's fighter of all time. You can make the case for it though. But from one champion to from one former champion to another former champion here, we got Rose Namajunas, who has been pretty quiet about the situation as it pertains as to why she pulled out of the fight against Jessica Andrade. So there are multiple accounts as to what happened here. Some people are speculating that Rose Namajunas was forced to pull out and that it wasn't even really her decision. She was forced out of it though. Is it because she's sick? Is it because one of her trainers were sick? I'm not really sure what really happened then. But Rose Namajunas mysteriously got pulled out of her fight against Jessica Andrade, and it was super disappointing because I really want to see, hey, how's Rose Namajunas been? She's gonna have this rematch against Jessica Andrade after pulling off probably the best first round she's ever participated in all her career as an MMA fighter. She had a fight to redeem herself. If she defeated Jessica Andrade, it would get her an immediate title fight against Weili Zhang. Rose Namajunas was originally offered a title fight against Weili Zhang, and Rose declined. So now I'm wondering what's going on with Rose. What's happening with her? So I look her up on her Instagram on her recent, what is she posting? Is she posting fight videos or her training and stuff? And for the most part, not really. It seems like she's having fun with life. It seems like she's happy in her life. She's having fun. Her last 3 posts are all of her eating greens and farming. Not talking about the fight game at all. Her post before that was her eating cereal. It's just her eating cereal and talking about, hey man, life is great, and is being awkward. And then she says she still works out. I don't know if she's working out with the fight game in mind though. So the last time she posted anything that pertained to her fighting or fighting within the gym was March 7, which was about a month ago. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Rose Namajunas. I really don't. When can we expect her to fight? Because she seems healthy. If it was an injury concern, we would get a report that she got injured, but that's not the case really. Is it because somebody got sick? Well, honestly, there are no reports. There have been 0 reports and updates on Rose Namajunas for the past year, pretty much. It's after she lost her belt to Jessica Andrade, she's been it's like she's trying to forget her MMA career. She still posts pictures of her holding the belt when she defeated Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She still posts a picture of herself holding the belt, and she posted one time a poster, an image of the poster for her versus Andrade. So I don't know what's happening with Rose Namajunas. Hopefully everything goes well for her, and we get to see her in a fight game because she's a really great striker. She's a really great fighter. It's just a matter of when can we see her back in the octagon? And so after the short break, we'll be covering some more MMA news right here, the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back here. So the current strawweight women's champion Weili Zhang finally returns home. This is coming in from MMA Junkie USA Today.com. That champ Weili Zhang returns to China 6 weeks after UFC 248 Classic. So we discussed Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Rose Namajunas. Well, let's talk about the current champion here of the strawweight division, as Weili Zhang is finally going home more than a month after her all-time great title fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk at UFC 248. Weili Zhang, who's 21-1, 5-0 in the UFC, the reigning UFC strawweight champion, endured a wild travel experience leading up to her encounter with Joanna Jędrzejczyk on March 7. She was forced to leave her native China far ahead of the event as the coronavirus pandemic started to become a serious threat, but after much headache, managed to make it to Las Vegas, And despite all their travel hiccups, Weili Zhang produced an incredible fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, edging out on a thrilling split decision victory to defend her belt for the first time in the Fight of the Year frontrunner. Unlike most fighters though, Weili Zhang didn't go home immediately after her fight. According to her manager, Brian Butler at Sucker Punch Entertainment, Weili remained in Las Vegas for the past 6 weeks to minimize risk traveling from the US to China as the coronavirus crisis worsened. Butler told MMA Junkie following an initial report from ESPN that Weili, along with 2 members of her team, are set to embark on their journey home beginning Sunday. Weili has been out of the country since early February. It remains to be seen when she will be booked to fight again as the UFC attempts to put fights back together in the midst of the pandemic. So Weili Zhang, in the past 6 weeks though, after the week of the fight with her and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's been constantly talking about how she misses China. She wants to go back home. She's feeling sick. And then after the fight and because international airlines are in a weird place right now in terms of because the coronavirus pandemic is a major issue, Weili Zhang is adamant, I want to go home. I'm feeling homesick. And I kind of understand her perspective on that. Not as bad as her when it comes to its country. So I had to go study at UC Berkeley for the better part of a year and a half to 2 years, and I felt so bad. I felt really awful. I was raised in the Southern California area. Moved to Northern California to study up at Berkeley. And there at Berkeley though, I'm just so there's the sense of dread. You feel a lot more dread than you should. You walk outside, it's you want to stay home because you don't want to walk outside. Not because of the coronavirus thing being a major issue, but because you just don't recognize anything. You don't recognize any of the buildings. Your friends and family members are not close to you. You feel really distant and isolated. So even though I'm pretty much living in the Silicon Valley area, I live in the richest part of the United States of America. I kind of brag about that. They're hey man, I lived with a bunch of millionaires and billionaires. It felt super lonely and it felt super isolated. And I wouldn't be surprised if Weili Zhang, to a much larger extent, was hey man, I felt isolated here living in Las Vegas, full of people who don't speak my language. What's going on here? I want to leave badly. So I feel sad for Weili Zhang, but I also feel happy for her in the sense that she's finally going to head home. And I can't wait and I'm pretty sure when she heads home, she's alright, I'm finally home. Where's the bed? I can have a real sleep and not sleep in some dumb American hotel or in someone's house, because that's not my place. Oh man. So I feel kind of happy for her in that she finally gets to go home, gets to relax, and things are going well for her. Not just for international traveling thing being a little bit more light. Here at the States, things are being a lot less restrictive. Coming up in the middle of June. That's the estimated guess to which the country's going to start reopening up some of its businesses. So, maybe things are going to be a lot more lighter in the next coming 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And so there's another report coming in from MMAfighting.com that Paige VanZant plans to fight and have one more arm surgery, talks a new contract in that order. So Paige VanZant has been one fight from free agency for over 1 year. A nagging arm injury has been the thing preventing her from finishing her current contract. The veteran strawweight and flyweight contender first suffered a broken arm in her fight against Jessica Rose Clark back in 2018. She finally returned a year later and picked up a submission win over Rachel Ostovich, but then suffered another arm fracture. VanZant eventually underwent another surgery. She was scheduled to fight against Amanda Ribas in March, when she endured another break that set her back once again, another arm injury. According to VanZant, the continuing issues are related to a surgically implanted plate in her arm that was meant to stabilize the bone when she first had surgery. Ow, but the plate is now doing more harm than good. She can't seem to avoid additional fractures. So the biggest problem is I need to get the plate out of my arm. VanZant revealed when speaking to MMA Fighting, Tony Ferguson broke his own nut too, and he had his plate taken out, so that's why he hasn't had any complications with it. I have a plate that pretty much runs from my wrist to my elbow, and each one of those has a screw hole, so I have 7 screw holes in my arm. Each one of those screw holes is technically a hole in your bone, so they're all weak points. Then at the front of your plate and at the end of your plate is a weak point too. Because your bone flexes and it bends whereas the plate doesn't bend, your arm bends around the plate. Each time I've rebroken it, I've broken through a new screw hole. I just need to get the plate taken out, so it's just another surgery I have to look forward to. During her layoff, Vincent has wanted to book a fight, but the continual problems with her arm injury has kept her sidelined for the better part of 15 months. As discouraging as it might be to have another surgery, she knows it'll be the best thing for her and her long-term success. I was able to have a successful fight against Rachel Ostovich with plate in and then not hurt myself. Then I come back home in a fight, and a week later I break my arm sparring. It's just so unpredictable. I'm pretty much on the same page with the surgeons now. It was hard for me to first say, yeah, I'll have the surgery, let's fix the break, and then let's plan on having a second surgery. It was hard to agree to all that when I knew how long it was going to take me out of fighting, but ultimately it's the right thing to do. While she will need another surgery before it was all said and done, Van Zandt still plans to book another fight as soon as possible and deal with her arm later. The timeline is fight one more time and I'll be in contract negotiations at that point. I'll be a free agent. Theoretically, that could take a long time to go through that negotiation process. So it's the perfect time to have one more arm surgery and heal that right away. By the time negotiations are over, I'll have a new contract, I'll have a fight lined up. All that will give me plenty of time to heal my arm correctly. Vezan says she definitely didn't want to have another surgery, but given the diagnosis from her doctors, she knows this will allow her to avoid further complications from a broken arm. I think no matter what, I have this plate in my arm. It's going to be a weak point, Vezan said. It feels fine. Everything feels normal. I can train 100%. This last one, a dude threw a flying knee and I just blocked it wrong. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't my fault. It was just a freak accident. It wasn't even like it was a hard knee. But it broke through one of my screw holes. As long as I have the screws on my arm, it'll be hard. Fingers crossed, I will not break it in the fight, but I will not spar looking forward to my next fight. I know I've been doing this long enough. I've been fighting and training since I was 15 years old, so 11 years. I know how to spar. I'm not going to forget how to fight. I do know I have the confidence if I do break my arm in a fight again, I'm not going to quit. It's definitely not going to take me out of the fight. So Paige VanZant, she's optimistic about herself. What's very interesting about this is that she doesn't intend to retire though. There is speculation going on Paige VanZant's future in the UFC because this is her last fight. She's been trying to schedule her last fight for pretty much over a year now, and it just hasn't been happening for her. So the idea is, and she says that contract negotiations are going to go on long, which is very strange to me. And considering the fact that she's willing to go fight with possibly getting easily injured, or with with something that her opponent can go take advantage of if she were to fight against someone else soon, it doesn't seem smart for Paige VanZant within the rankings of the UFC to continue to compete, considering the fact that this injury is really major and she really needs to get this played out. If she doesn't plan to fight in the UFC, it kind of makes sense to me. From my perspective, from how I'm looking at it, I think Paige VanZant's like, you know what? I just want this fight to go out. I just want this fight to happen. And then when the fights happen, I then get to contract negotiations. I don't really care about moving up the ranks. I don't care about fighting it smart or fighting it safe. I just care about knocking out my contract. I don't care that it's a dumb idea for me to fight with this injury. I just want to get out of this contract so I can go and move on to something else. So Paige VanZant says she's still open for fighting, but she doesn't say she's open for fighting another opponent. So what's going to happen to Paige VanZant? What's going on in her future? Is she going to fight at ONE? Is she going to fight at Bellator? Well, we've seen Kat Zingano and Chris Howard make the move, so maybe Paige VanZant might make the move, and if she did make the move, that'll be a major acquisition for Bellator. Coming back after a short break here, we'll end off with something a little bit more fun right here, the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. And so, to those of you who don't know, my sister is in the Army. She fights in the Army. Not really fights in the Army, she serves for the Army. But there she does some fighting. They do some hand-to-hand combat training. They do some grappling exchanges there. There was a moment in time that, like, my parents are still upset about this, to which my sister had a grappling exchange with a couple of the women there in the Army, and she ended up being choked out twice by 2 other women. And my parents were like, oh my gosh, how could you, like, let this girl, this little, my innocent little princess, go and fight this violent stuff, this violent cage fighting stuff? And my sister was like, oh, come on, like, Ronda Rousey does it, it's fine, it's normal. My sister still follows mixed martial arts, and she thought, honestly, so, the way how she told it to me, she said that she had so much swagger and so much confidence doing these, like, grappling exchanges in the Army. She's like, hey man, I follow MMA, I'm a huge nerd for mixed martial arts, I'll get this, I'm gonna tap out everybody. And so my sister was able to tap out one person in the Army. She got one person down, she got one victory, she's 1-0. And then she wrestled one other person, got lost via rear naked choke, then fought another person, tapped out yet again rear naked choke. So she tells about, yeah, man, technically in my fighting career, I'm 1-2. So, you know, that's better than 0-0. I have one more win than you. So my sister is a huge fan of mixed martial arts. And my sister, my brother, and me, and kind of all my family members, we're all talking about, like, okay, so if all of us dedicated our careers into being mixed martial artists, how would we fight? I told, so, my prediction, if I was a mixed martial artist, dude, I would definitely be a boxer, without a doubt. I would prioritize myself in boxing, and secondary be wrestling. My brother says wrestling, because his punches aren't that hard. And then my sister said that she wants to be like Ronda Rousey, being able to fight people in the clinch and take people down. But I found a quiz here. MMA style quiz. What type of fighter are you? So depending on how I answer this quiz here, it's going to determine my MMA style. I think that I would be boxer, like Ryan Bader. Like I say, if I were to train really, really hard, because I'm 6 foot, if I were to train really, really hard, do a bunch of weightlifting, I did do some weightlifting, but if I were to dedicate into like a combat sports, because I did some taekwondo early on at a young age, that involved a lot of kicking. Kicking is not my strongest suit. I'd rather like throw 100 jabs than I would try to go for like a spinning roundhouse kick. That's just me, personally. So, if you guys can go and follow it with me right now. It's, go to www.quiblo.com, type up MMA style quiz, and it should be the first link coming up if you were to search it on Google. You can go take the quiz, and then you guys can learn what kind of MMA style are you? What kind of MMA style are you? Are you a ground wrestler? Are you a jiu-jitsu wrestler? Do you fight like Shogun Rua? Do you use knees? Do you use Muay Thai? Or are you just strictly a boxer? What are you? So first question here. How would you like to end a fight? Tap out quick by slamming them hard enough to knock them out, kicking them to death, get in close and knock them out, or knockout. What is it? So one answer here says get in close and knock them out, and then there's knock them out. Are you, what? You're knocking them no matter what. Like, technically slamming them is a knockout. It really is. Kicking them is a knockout. So it says here, kicking them to death. I don't want to die. Okay, I don't want to kill someone. I really don't. I don't want to kick them to the point that the referee can't stop me and they're dead. So, how I love to end a fight, kind of like Jorge Masvidal. You get in, you get out really quickly. The answer is quick. That's my answer. I like to end a fight quick because the more longer I'm in the octagon or I'm in a cage or I'm in a ring, dude, the more I'm susceptible to getting a long-term injury. I don't want to deal with that. How close do you like to get to your opponent? How close? Okay, what depends on the fighter, how like stylistically it matches up for me. So the options here, how close do you want to be close to your opponents? Do you want to be far away? No, because I gotta be close enough to fight them. You want to be kind of close? How do you measure kind of close? You want to be close? Do you want to be in the clinch? You want to close enough to make them tap out? I'm guessing in the clinch? Who made this quiz? Or took them to, there's even a misspelling here, oh my gosh. Took them to the grung and right on them. I don't know what that means. So, I'd like to knock them out. I want to go for the flying knee. or to dive in for a haymaker. So I want to go for close. That's what I'm gonna. But yeah, because close and the clinch are two different things. So if I'm far enough for it to not be considered the clinch and be close still, I don't know. Question number 3. What part of your body is your best weapon? Your legs, your fists, your elbows/knees? What? So elbows and knees are in the same category? Are you kidding me? No, they're very different. Fighting with your elbows and knees are very, very different. There's one here. They are all equally valuable. Nah, dude. I can throw better uppercuts than I can throwing straight side kicks. It's not happening for me. The other option here is whatever works. Then we have when I'm on the ground, it all counts. So jiu-jitsu, basically. But they're not implying jiu-jitsu. They're just saying when I'm in the ground, it all counts. So if a guy takes you down and you start punching from the bottom, is that all that counts? What the heck? I'll go with best weapon would be elbows/knees, even though they should be separate categories. I don't know what's up with this. Why do you want to study martial arts? To street fight? No, I don't want to get to a situation where I have to street fight. You want to have the ability to have you want to be able to learn a martial art, because if in case you were to get in a situation to being in a street fight, you can go defend yourself and beat the heck out of whoever is fighting you. You don't want to be in a street fight. You want to have the skills to prepare you for a street fight. Different things. To get into UFC, not with their salary. For college and high school, would I like to do MMA for high school? Thing is though, I consider myself a small heavyweight. There's a huge distinction between the light heavyweights and the heavyweight division. And considering the fact that my weight implies that I should fight heavyweights, but with the way how I physically look, I don't look like a heavyweight. I look like I should be walking around 185. I walk around at 240. I walk around at 240, but I look like I'm 180. It's very weird. I'm not fat or not really. I'm kind of chunky, but I'm not really fat. I'm kind of buff. I got a big chest upper body, so I look big, but at the same time, I'm also too small to fight heavyweight. So if I were to compete at the high school, college level, I should be even dropping even more weight. I should probably drop this 175 to 165, which isn't feasible for me. So no. For self-defense, that's a good one too. Yeah, for self. It looks like a good workout, maybe. For the Olympics, heck yeah, I would like to go compete in the Olympics. That'd be great, man. But why do I want to study a martial art though? I guess for self-defense. And I guess for the competitive aspect of it though, amateur boxing to me was super fun. It was a great experience. I think a lot of people should try to, if you've never been in a boxing ring ever, and you've sparred or had a round or two, or an entire match against another person, it's very exhilarating, surprisingly. So who is your favorite fighter among these? The options are Anderson Silva, Kurt Angle, Gina Carano, Manny Pacquiao, Bruce Lee, or other. I'm Filipino, so I gotta go for Manny Pacquiao as my option there. And then we got here, who, if you were going to watch one of these, which would it be? Would it be The Wrestler? Really great movie, by the way. You guys should definitely watch it. Kiss of the Dragon, Never Back Down, Rocky, Karate Kid, or Kickboxer. Of course, man. Hey, yeah, Kickboxer. I think that's one with Van Damme. I would love to watch Bloodsport or Mortal Kombat. Those are two of my personal kung fu movies I'd go for. Just choose. Next, final question here. Choose a question. That's not even a question. Choose a country. So we have China, Korea, Greece, USA, Thailand, Brazil. Where's Philippines? Where's Japan? Oh man, what the heck? Where's Hong Kong? Come on. It's not even a question. Choose a country. Okay, I'll go for America because we got good old traditional wrestling and boxing here. And what kind of fighter am I? My results are that I am a boxer. Your style is boxing developed in ancient Greece / USA. Your fighting style consists of all punching. You may not be a well-rounded fighter, but if you can hit as hard as fast as you do, it's misspelled here. You need it. It says here, if you can hit as hard and as fast as you do, you need to be. Oh my gosh. So I predicted that I'd be a boxer, and I got my boxing answer. So good for me. Yay me. Well, thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps up. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.